do I feel about the discreet hair bow? Yes? No? Never again? I'm still deciding. Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with my March reading plans. So once again, I am participating in a ton of readathons because there are just so many things that I want to read and that I want to do in March, but I've managed to overlap quite a few of the challenges, so hopefully my stack of books is not too unrealistic. We shall see. So the first readathon I'm going to talk about is the Irish Readathon. All of the information about the readathons and the hosts that I talk about will be in the description, of course, and it runs for the whole month of March. The first challenge is to read a book with green on the cover, and I will be reading The Runaway King by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is the sequel to The False Prince, which I really loved, but for some reason I just never continued on with the trilogy. Next, we are supposed to read a book written by a female Irish author, and I will be reading Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I am really excited to get to this. I know Aoife just recently read Good People, or Normal People, I think it's called, and she just really liked the author and her way of creating characters, and I think this is going to be really interesting. It's about like female friendships, and I think one of the characters actually ends up possibly having an affair with her best friend's husband, but I don't know if it's like really an affair. I don't know. It sounds really complicated and messy and interesting on the back, and this is not necessarily something I would normally pick up, but I have heard really good things about this author. Another one of the challenges is to read one of the host's favorite author's books, I think, and each of them had chosen an author, and I don't know if I'm going to be getting to that one. I might try to pick up In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to get to that one. And then lastly for that readathon, I'm going to be combining two prompts, and one of them is to read something that is not a novel, and then the other one is to read something published before the year you were born. And I will be reading one of Oscar Wilde's plays. You guys know, I'm sure, from my channel name and from all of the things I talk about, that I'm a huge fan of Oscar Wilde, and I actually haven't read all of his work yet, and I'm really excited to get to this. I think I'll probably end up reading An Ideal Husband. I haven't read that play of his before, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. Another month-long readathon that I'm so excited for, and that I feel like is very on brand for me, is Middle Grade March. You guys know that I always love reading middle grade, and I think it's so cool that we have a whole month where we really focus on it. The first challenge is to read a middle grade nonfiction book, or a book based on true events, and I will be picking up Dactyl Hill Squad by Daniel Jose Older. And as you can see, there are dinosaurs. There are children riding dinosaurs on the cover, so that's not the realistic part, but the true events part of this book is because the main characters are living in the Colored Orphan Asylum, which was a real thing, that was a real system, and I'm really interested to see how the author handles this. I've heard great things from Jocelyn over at Yogi with the Book, and I think Priscilla at Bookie Charm, possibly Yvette at Book Cave, also read this and really enjoyed it, and I just think this is going to be really fantastic. Next challenge is to read a book with a non-human main character or a significant side character, and I will be going with Artemis Fowl, The Eternity Code by Eoin Colfer. This is going to be a reread for the Artemis Fowl read-along that I am co-hosting, and in March we will be reading the third book, and this is one of my favorites in the series. I'm so looking forward to getting to this, and Holly is one of the main characters. She's the one on the cover here, and she is actually an elf, so she's definitely not a human. Sometimes I forget that these books are technically considered middle grade. I feel like some of the later ones would probably be YA, but anyway, I think people tend to sell these as middle grade, so I'm going to count it, even if it doesn't really make sense to me. And I'm also counting this for the challenge to read a middle grade fantasy book. Next, we're supposed to read a book written in verse, and I don't actually have one for that one. I might try and pick up something during the month, but if you guys are looking for a recommendation for that, I highly recommend A Time to Dance by Padma Venkatraman. That is a really beautiful story about a young girl in India who is in a car accident, and I think she loses her legs, one of her legs below the knee or something like that, and she can't dance anymore, and it's about her coming to terms with her new body and kind of like reclaiming this passion that she has, and it's just a really beautiful story, and it is in verse, and I highly recommend that one. And the last challenge is to read a diverse book, and that can mean a main character who's different from you in nationality, ethnicity, ability, religion, etc. There's lots of different ways you can interpret that, and although I could definitely count Dactyl Hill Squad for that prompt, I really want to read this next book, so I'm throwing it in, and that is Amina's Voice by Hina Khan. This was a gift from my lovely friend Jocelyn, so thank you so much, and I am so excited to get to this. This sounds like a really beautiful and powerful story. Amina's best friend suddenly starts trying to fit in better with like the popular kids in their class, and talks about changing her name to something more American and things like that, and so Amina is kind of caught between wanting to feel comfortable where she lives and holding on to her culture and her background. And then in the midst of all of this, I believe her local mosque is vandalized, and Amina has to decide if she's going to use her voice and kind of speak out about that. And I've just heard really beautiful things about this book. I know Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly really enjoyed it, and I really trust her middle grade recommendations, so I am really looking forward to this. And finally, there is the Femme Fantail readathon, and I don't remember, I think this one is like, it starts at the beginning of March or something. And I've actually just got a few books here. Really excited to get to all of them. This readathon is all about reading female-centered, female-authored fantasy, and I am so looking forward to it. So I'm gonna go by book instead of by challenge because there is a lot of overlap with these, and the first one I have is actually a manga, and that is the second volume of The Ancient Magus Bride by Kore Yamazaki, translated by Adrienne Beck, and I read the first volume last month, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I've heard that the first volume in a manga series is often like a very setup focused story, and I do think I'm going to really enjoy it. I liked some of the characters and some of the humor, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this. And this counts for the translated fiction prompt. I will also be picking up Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This is a Japanese inspired fantasy, and I don't think they actually use the term kitsune in this, but I think that's what the mythology it draws from is. It's like these these legendary fox creatures, and I've heard really, really good things about this book. I'm so excited to get to it, and this one counts for several challenges. It counts for inspired by myth, and it also counts for BAME author, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting this one, and it also counts for the young adult prompt. Next, I'm finally going to be continuing with a series that I have no excuse for not reading the next one, and that is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. This is the second book in the Wayward Children series, and we follow two of the characters we meet in the first book, and I think this is like a prequel, and I think it's got some like Dracula or Frankenstein vibes, possibly both. And I've heard that it's really great, a really great exploration of gender and kind of the roles that we force girls into. And I think one of the main characters is also a lesbian, and so this book counts for the queer prompt, for the novella prompt, and I think that's it. Next, I have a book that I was sent for a review a little while ago, and I still just haven't had time to get to it, and that is An Easy Death by Charlaine Harris. This is a really, really hard summary to describe, but it sounds a little bit like historical, and there's also, I think, some Russian influences, and also the Old West, and it might be dystopian. I don't know, like the synopsis sounds really interesting, and I'm still really interested in reading it, but I can't really explain it to you. But I think it's going to be good. And this counts for the historical fantasy prompt, and I think for the adult prompt as well. I'm never good at age ranges, so who knows. And then finally, I'm going to try and get my hands on a copy of Rose Daughter by Robin McKinley. This is one of the books that my friend Giselle picked out for me, and this actually would count for, I think, all of the remaining challenges. So it would count for romance, fairy tale retelling, standalone, and published pre-2000, which that one was a lot harder than I thought. There were a couple of books I found that were like 2001, but they didn't actually count for that. So I'm really looking forward to getting to that one. And also I'll be participating in Sequel-A-Thon, which is hosted by Rebecca and Sarah over at Tea Hags, which is all about reading sequels, which I definitely need help with. But I won't have my TBR out for that until later in the month because I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to read. Okay, you guys, so those are my overambitious reading plans for March, but I am so excited about all of these books, so I'm hoping I'll be able to get these done, and probably some more on top of that. Like, especially I have a few other middle grade fantasy books that I would love to read during the month, so we'll see if that happens too. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!